Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone. We are from group 2. The members are Cepi Ramdhani, Widi Nansuci, Siti Puput Hermawati, Aliefia Mutiara Safina Larasati, and Neli Saadatudarain. In this occasion, we would like to explain about ESP course design. In this time, the presentation will be consist of definitions of ESP course design, language-centered, skill-centered, learning-centered, and conclusion. Now let's moving on definitions of ESP course design. The process of interpreting raw data about learning requirement in order to build an integrated set of educational learning experiences whose ultimate goal is to guide learners to a specific set of knowledge is called course design. Next, in order to offer a reasoned basis for the succeeding processes of syllabus creation, material ordering, classroom instruction, and evaluation, designing a course is primarily a matter of asking questions. So we need to ask a range of questions, general and specific, theoretical and practical, such as why do the students need to learn? Who is going to be involved in this process? Where is learning to take place? When is learning to take place? What does the student need to learn? And what aspect of language needed? I think that's all from me. For the next material will be delivered by Siti Puput Hermawati.
Alright, hello everyone. I am Siti Puput Hermawati. My student's numbers is 1921220008. In this occasion, I will continue the presentation. Here, there are probably many different approaches to ESP course design as there are course designers. However, we can identify three main types of course design. The first, language-centered course design. The second, skill-centered course design, and the last, learning-centered approach. Okay, next. Here I will explain language-centered course design. Language-centered approach is the simplest and more familiar kind to English teacher. It is particularly prevalent in English-specific purposes. The language-centered course design process aims to draw as a direct connection as possible between analysis of the target situation and the content of the ESP course. According to Hutchinson and Waters in 1987 said that this approach focuses on the linguistic performance of the learners in the target situation. Additionally, a language-centered approach says the nature of the target situation performance determines ESP course. Next, language-centered approach proceeds as follow the picture below. And at the first sight, this may seem to be a very logical procedure. It starts with the learners and then proceeds through various stages of analysis to syllabus and then to materials in use in the classroom and finally to the evaluation of mastery of the syllabus items. However, logical and straightforward as it may seem, but it has a number of drawbacks. The first, it starts from the learners and their needs, and thus it might be centered in any meaningful sense of the term. The learners are simply used as a means of identifying the target situation, instead of taking the whole of English and teaching it to be learners. As happen in general English, only a restricted area of the target language is taught. The learners is used solely as a way of locating the restricted area. Thereafter, the learners play no further part in the process. As we have seen, when considering need analysis, the learners should be considered at every single stage of the process. Yet, in this model, the learning needs of the students are not accounted for at all. Therefore, it is not learner-centered, but simply learner restricted. And the second, the learner-centered process can be criticized for being a static and inflexible procedure, which can take a little account of the conflicts and contradictions that are inherent in any human endeavor. Once the initial analysis of the target situation is done, the course designer is locked into the relentless process. The third, one of alluring features of this model is that it appears to be systematic. The fact that knowledge has been systematically analyzed and systematically presented does not in any way imply that it will be systematically learned. Learners have to make the system meaningful to themselves, and unfortunately, we have to admit that we don't know enough about the mind actually goes about creating its internal system of knowledge. And the fourth, the language-centered model gives no acknowledgement for two factors which must inevitably play a part in the creation of any course. Data such as that produced by a need analysis is not important in itself. The data must be interpreted, and interpreting the data, we make use all of sorts of knowledge that are not revealed in the analysis itself. To make a simple example, one of the primary principles of good pedagogic materials is that they should be interesting. An analysis of language item cannot tell you whether a text or an activity is interesting. Thus, if materials are based on language-centered model, then either there are other factors being used which are not acknowledgement in the model, or sadly, this is what seems so often to be the case. These learning factors are not considered to be important at all. And the last, the language-centered analysis of target situation data is only at the surface level. It reveals very little about the competence that underlines the performance. So, in summary, the logical, straightforward appeal of the language-centered approach is in effect its weakness. It fails to recognize the fact that learners being people, learning is not straightforward logical process. So I think that's all from me. The next presenter is Aliefia, Mutiara, Safina, Larasati. Please.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Aliefia Mutiara Safina Larasati. My student's number is 192122015, and in this occasion I will continue to the next material. So the second option of approach for designing ESP course design is skill-centered, as Hutchinsons and Waters believe that the goal of this approach is to help the ESP practitioner, annotated as teacher or instructor, discover the potential knowledge and competencies of the learner and their perspective of the target situation. And so therefore, the purpose shall be in line with the plan. The first step that should be taken is identify the situation of the target and analyze the skill or strategy which can help to handle X, problem, or need. While preparing for writing the syllabus, be in accordance to consider the theoretical views of language and learning. After that, do a selection of text and write exercises to focus on skills or strategies in syllabus. Thus, make the evaluation procedures. This approach lies on two principles, as stated in Cardigan and Fatima, which are the theoretical hypothesis and pragmatic. And in here, Creswell declare to underling any language behavior that there are certain skills in order to comprehend the discourse, and Widohood underline the distinction between goal-oriented courses and process-oriented courses. And in addition, it tries to build on the positive factors that the learners bring to the course rather than just on the negative idea of lacks. And finally, it frames its objectives in open-ended terms, so this is enabling learners to achieve at least something. And the benefits of using this approach were explored by Wallace in Chirimbu. It provides a foundation for discovering the underlying competence that enables people to behave in certain circumstances and allow specifically the course designer to find the potential knowledge and abilities that our learners bring to ESP course. I think that's all from me, and the next material will be presented by the next presenter. Thank you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. All right. In this occasion, I would like to continue the presentation, which explain about the ESP course design with the subtopic of learning-centered course design. So what is actually learning-centered course design? We will see this explanation on the next slide. So the next slide, please. All right, learning-centered course design. So learning-centered course design is based on the principle that course design is negotiation process in which both the target situation influence the features of the syllabus, and also it is a dynamic process in which means and resources vary from time to time. From this explanation, we get two important points. They are the first one, the learner-centered approach is based on the principle that learning is totally determined by the learner. And the second one is the teacher, we can influence what we teach, but what learners learn is determined by learners itself. It means that here the learners have an autonomous self-study which can bring them to the direction of the study or purposes they want. And in other words, the learners have a quite big responsibilities to manage their study. From this, we might say that learning-centered approach is not enough. Either we must look beyond the competence that enables someone to perform, because what we really want to discover is not the competence itself, but how someone acquires the competence. It is according to Cardigan and Fatima 2015. All right, the next slide. In the next slide, we will see how learning-centered approach to course design, or we will see that how this, how this design of language course design. It is how to design a course language design. In designing a language course design, it has several components. Those components comprise setting objective based on some form of assessment, determining the content, materials, and evaluation, which is its components was also adjust with the need of the learning-centered context. So in this diagram, we will see, and we can see that there is an identity learners. Identity learners here is divided into two points. They are analyze learning situation and analyze target situation. Next to the analyze learning situation and analyze target situation, there are theoretical views of language and theoretical views of the learning. It is the differences of the learning and the language itself. So right off the bottom of this point, the first one is in the theoretical fields of the learning and analyze learning situation, there is identity attitudes, wants, and powerful of learners, which is it can be it can be stated as identity needs, potential, constraints of learning and teaching situation. And in the next slide, side, on the analyze and target situation and theoretical views of the language, right of the bottom of this point, there is identity, skills, and knowledge needed to function in the target situation. From this context, from this point, we can conclude, or we can, we can make a conclusion, and we can make another point which states that right syllabus or materials to exploit the potential of the learning situation and the acquisition of the skill and knowledge required by the target situation. In this context, we will see, or we can see in the right in the next of this point, there are evaluation and evaluation. It is related with the analyze of learning situation and analyze the target situation. This is what actually how course design, or how to design a language course design. In this context, how to design a language course design is also determined, or is also adjusted with the with the learning standard of the learner centered itself. All right, everyone, maybe that's all from me. I think enough. Thank you so much for your nice attention, and the next explanation will be explained by my partner. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Let me introduce myself. I'm Neli, and my student's number is 1921222031 as the last presenter. So I'd like to mention the conclusion of our presentation. It can be concluded that course design is the process of interpreting raw data about a learning need in order to produce an integrated series of teaching learning experience whose ultimate purpose is to guide learner to a particular state of knowledge. There are many different approaches to ESP course design, but in this video, we only mention 3 approaches to ESP course design. The first one is language-centered. It aims to draw as direct connection as possible between analysis of the target situation and the content of ESP course design. Second, skills-centered. It aims at helping learners to develop skills and strategies which continue after the ESP course by making learners better processors of information. And the last is learning-centered. It is based on the principle that learning is totally determined by the learner. Next, here are the references that we used, and this brings us to the end of our presentations. Thank you so much for your kind attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.